So I just wanted to make this video to say that I've now made 10,000 online from copywriting, but I also want to point out that it's not for beginners. So what I mean by this is like I'm trying to dispel this myth that copywriting is easy or it's somehow uh, you can do it very quickly, and you really can't. It is a difficult thing to get into. So in this video, I basically want to explain that it's a lot harder than you think. Um, and people shouldn't be discouraged from doing it because it's a great career, but it's not as easy as these gurus will tell you it is. So as a beginner, like your first aim is that the first thing that you're gonna want to get is your first client. Like that's what you're trying to do. It's just everything's like, how do I land my first client? Like how do I get it? And I think it is hard. Like landing your first client is the hardest thing. Um, but I think you shouldn't be disheartened if you can't do it, because it's hard even for me. So a bit of background about me, like I already was a copywriter working at a company, and then I transitioned into freelance. So I tried to pitch clients already as a copywriter. I was already doing it for um, a company anyway, and I was already doing it within the niche I wanted to be in, and already for a legitimate company. And even I found it difficult. I found it really hard. Like it's not easy. Um, so if you are a copywriter with no experience, no portfolio, it's yeah, don't be disheartened. It is difficult. It is really hard. Like getting a client to trust you is hard work. Um, and I don't like the fact that these gurus say, oh, it's easy and it's simple and you can get a copywriting client within 30 days, because you might do, but then the quality of that then the quality of that client is not going to be great. Like it doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be good if you do get a client within 30 days. Like it's about getting quality clients. It's about getting quality clients that you can do good work for. Um, rather than just like trying to fleece people for their cash. It's about doing something that you actually like, because that's kind of what it's all about at the end of the day, is doing something that you actually want to do for good money and making good money and having a good time with it. That's really what it's about. It's not about, trying to find a hack or to sort of cheat people out of their money. Because one thing I think is that, you're pitching to business owners, right? These guys are, they're smart. Like they know business better than you do, and you think you're gonna trick them as a student, or like you think you're gonna come up with a system that they're gonna never heard of. Like these guys are savvy. Like they have started a business. Like they know what they're doing, and they know what copywriting is as well. They're not new to the game. So I think as a beginner, it's just important to build up as much writing as possible. That's really what your aim should be, not necessarily to try and pitch your services to businesses, but to try and get as much experience actually writing for real people. So that means maybe starting a blog, starting a newsletter, starting on Fiverr, starting on Upwork, like any of these platforms where you can build up a portfolio that you can then demonstrate to a business that you can write. Because I'm now in a position where I'm hiring copywriters to help me with stuff sometimes. Um, and the one thing I look at is, have they done work before? Like, what have they done? Can they demonstrate they can write well? Because I'm spending money and I'm risking time into these clients. Or sorry, I'm risking time in this copywriter. And that's really what the risk is. That's the one reason they don't want to hire you, is because they don't want to risk the time. They don't want to spend all the time hiring you, go through all the processes, sign an NDA, and then your work sucks and it wasn't worth it anyway. So that's really the thing that you're trying to um, that's really the worry you're trying to dispel when you're pitching to someone, is, are you actually going to be are you going to waste their time? And if you show that you've put in time into your writing, then it's going to be worthwhile, because you need that foundation. You need that, like, that basis to the work you're offering, because you're a writer at the end of the day, and you're trying to convince someone to write stuff for them. Like they're gonna want to see, okay, are you a good writer? Can you actually do what? Can you actually like write well? You know, and if you've got a portfolio, that's what they're gonna appreciate. Um, so I think I see a lot of young copywriters being like, oh, I'm gonna like, sort of hack my way, or like find some kind of system that is gonna, funnel hack, or something like that. But in reality, that's not how it goes. I've got a copywriter friend, and we were talking today about, you know, this kind of stuff, but this is at our level. Like we've been doing it for a couple of years, and we're now thinking, okay, what kind of more offerings can we do? But both of us have just started with the base work. We've both done, he did like email kind of copywriting kind of stuff. I've started with like content writing. We both sort of approach copywriting, and that's the thing is now we're getting clients and we're doing well, but it's not easy for beginners because we've had that basis in those years of experience that then we can say, oh, yeah, it's easy to get into copywriting, but it was easy for us. For beginners, it's a bit harder. But what these gurus don't cover is the fact that a lot of people have a foundation of something. They have a basis that they have somewhere where they've already got to, you know? And I think if there are any young copywriters that make it big, generally they're either lying or they have rich friends. They have people that they've convinced to do the copywriting for them. They have a good network, or they've just gotten very lucky and they're just very skilled with sales. They've just done well to sell to the right people, and they've just got a good offering, and they've demonstrated in a clear way that um, they can get results for businesses. So it's it's a tricky one because I think I see a lot of people getting disheartened, thinking, "Oh, I'll never make it work, and therefore I'm a failure." But I actually think you just need to put the time in, because you don't need to be a genius. Like essentially, it's like I'm saying, like when I'm hiring for these people, like I don't want someone who's necessarily like I don't really care about what they've done or their experience. I just want to see like initial sort of, you know, uh, initial impressions are that they know what they're doing. They've written things before. They've put in the effort to actually create something. And even if they have no clients, even if they just have a bunch of fake articles that they've written that are not actually real, like that would be the one thing that I would do if I were a new copywriter. Is I would just write an article on something that I found interesting. I would just pick, I don't know, hedges and be like, 10 best hedge trimming tools, and I would just write that article flat out, and then I would either publish it on a blog that I'd make, or I would just show it in a Google Doc and say, here's an article that I've written, and it's grammatically correct and it's good. Because this is one thing that I did actually when I came to landing one of my first good clients. Was I showed them a gaming blog that I used to run, and I got like a bunch of clicks on it. I never made any money from it, and the articles weren't that good. But the fact that I'd made a website and published all these articles consistently was a real selling point. That was where, people actually, the fact that I'd actually made a website and the fact that I'd actually published like 80 articles on it, even if they didn't read them, but they could just see that and they thought, wow, okay, this guy can write. He likes to write. He's a good writer. That's all it takes. It just takes a bit of demonstration that you have a portfolio, and it doesn't need to be legitimate. You don't necessarily need to lie, but you don't need to. I'm not gonna. If I see someone's portfolio, I'm not gonna go through and investigate exactly where it's come from. I'm just gonna be like, okay, this guy, he's got a bunch of writing and he can write, and that's it. And that's all you need to do. That's the thing. The thing about copywriting is that people forget that, it's about being a good writer. You know, it's not necessarily, it's playing going over. It's not necessarily about, these systems and stuff like that. It's not about hacking anything yet. It's just about being a good writer, being grammatically correct, writing stuff that's engaging and interesting and that people are going to read, that people are going to click on. That's your job. And there's no formula for that. because when people sell copywriting cheat sheets or copywriting hacks, whether it's true or not, it may be true at that exact time, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it will be true even in a month or 2 weeks, because if everyone's then using it, it's going to be boring and no one's going to use it again. Going to it's not going to last. So take those with a pinch of salt, I think, because they're good practice if you're new, and there's some frameworks that do work, but it's not going to be like, there's no shortcuts, it won't work forever. And to be honest, I think in this day and age, people are getting more and more sick of clickbait content, of content that's just clearly to sell. And even Google is now, like, SEO is now rewarding content that is more human written, as Google says. They like content that is demonstrated, that they like content that can be, that it's clear that it's written by a person, and it will do well. And if you write in a sort of conversational tone, like, it will actually do better for SEO. So there's even actually a need to ignore copywriting frameworks in that way, to ignore cheat sheets and things like that, and just focus on being a good writer, being an engaging writer, learning how to just write a nice sentence and to write a nice, like, email headline that explains what the email is. And it's not necessarily going to help you just constantly learning how to learn all these hacks without actually learning to write in the first place. And that's the thing that annoys me about these gurus, is that they sell copywriting like it's an easy thing, like it's simple. But if it was easy, then everyone would do it, and everyone would do it for all companies, and then companies wouldn't find any value in it. There wouldn't be any value in doing it at all. But the value in it is your expertise and your work, which takes a long time to build up. How can you provide any value if you don't have any experience, or if you're not a cut above everyone else? So I don't really understand how they can say that it's a simple thing, because it really isn't. Um, I think maybe it's just because the concept is very simple. You're just writing for businesses, but businesses are complex, like, and people are complex. Like, it takes a long time to learn what a business needs and what a client needs, and also what a client wants compared to what they need. It takes a lot of time. So if you're a beginner, definitely don't worry about that. I have a video, my previous video, which is on how to land your first client, and it actually demonstrates exactly how I landed my first client, which was sort of a bit of a fluke, but that's all you need. You just need a bit of luck and be in the right place at the right time, pretty much. Um, and I think the one advice I'd give to beginners, if they are starting out, is a portfolio. You just need a portfolio. That is the number one thing that you need as a beginner. Like, forget all these systems, all these copywriting skills, or anything like that. Just a portfolio, just a website or a blog with just things on it, or even just some Google Docs and a Google Drive. That's perfectly fine. It doesn't really matter, as long as there's just some demonstration of work that you've done. It can be emails, articles, whatever, just some form of text that you can show if someone asks you, what have you done? That's all you need. You don't need anything fancy, because the other thing that these gurus do is they say that you need to come up with these funnels and these sales systems, which, in my opinion, that's quite a late stage. Like, this is like quite advanced stuff that you're not going to be doing as a beginner, because as a beginner you're just a content producer. Like, you just make content for businesses. They will have their sales funnels already in place, and then when you're more advanced and you're more professional, you can then start offering sales funnels. You can start suggesting ways that they'll change their content when you're someone that knows a lot about content. But as a beginner, you're not going to know more than they are about their own stuff, or you're not going to know more than they are about their business. And it takes a long time to get to that point. But what happens is, these gurus, they get to that point and then they try and sell you the after product, when as they're either lying, or they've forgotten themselves what it took to get them to that point. So that's my thoughts on that. So, I mean, basically, this is just a long-winded way of saying that it's difficult to get clients, and it's going to be hard to get your first client. it took me a long time. Even with copywriter written on my CV as a professional, it was still then really hard for me to figure out how to pitch to clients and how to find clients and how to even find um, even just find clients or figure out what to do. So basically, like I said, a long-winded way of saying that if you're a beginner, don't worry about it. Like you will find the clients as long as you just keep outreaching, you just keep putting yourself out there, you keep just every day like trying to level up. You'll find the clients. So yeah, like if you want to know more about what I do and about my life as a copywriter here in London, my Substack is in the description. Please subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.